Hello everyone, this is Yeshua Said My Name. Thank you for watching the previous video that I presented to you. I wanted to give you a preface of what today's our second video is about. And hopefully I've done enough work to give you a photographic presentation in this video, along with a reading that I'm going to do for you from, it's a small excerpt from Scott Carpenter's book, The Nephilim Among Us, the late Scott Carpenter, who is a born-again Christian who went home to be with the Lord a year ago. He talks about this subject in depth. This is not a secular book. This is written by a born-again Christian man, a brother whom the Lord revealed these things to. So I'm going to be reading to you from this book. If you have not purchased it, you can get it on Amazon. I encourage you to do so. If you're interested in modern Nephilim, what the Lord's brother Jude was speaking about the fallen angels, and the days of Noah that the Lord spoke of in Matthew 24 from a biblical perspective. But I'm going to be reading from this book from our brother Scott Carpenter, as well as giving you a little bit of pictorial history of what took place for me in April with what I believe was a modern Sasquatch Nephilim phenomenon. Now, before you click off or laugh or scoff or think I'm crazy, those of you who know this channel, have followed it for years, know that I would never post something like this unless I felt the Lord leading me to. This is definitely not a subject that, in my opinion, would cause people to subscribe to you. If anything, most people would think you're crazy to be talking about such things, all right? Because dealing with this subject, modern Nephilim, fallen angels, the UFO phenomena, many people don't want to discuss it. It's very disturbing, controversial, especially in the body of Christ, and it's not something that's easy to come forward about. And a lot of people choose to remain silent about their experiences because of fear of ridicule and being shamed. However, I felt the Holy Spirit telling me to come forward with my testimonies and with my experiences with some of these things that I can't explain, because I want you to know that you're not alone. Also, I want to inform you that I feel the enemy has been trying to push back at me. This did not start happening to me with these beings until, I'd say, the spring of this year, which I discussed with you on the video just previous to this one, because I started exposing the modern Nephilim UFO phenomena in greater detail. And as soon as I started doing that, that's when I noticed that staff driven into my yard and the orb that flew by 4 days later after I asked the Lord for confirmation. So I don't take that as a coincidence, all right? And the Lord was confirming that for me. What I want to do today for you is inform you that about, I'd say, what's it been, 3 days now? I had an experience in my backyard where, I'll take my cat outside. I don't like to let her go out alone. I don't want her wandering off and getting hurt. We have predators everywhere, fox and predators. So I try and go out with her a couple of times a day. And when I went out with her in the yard about 3 days ago, I noticed there was it looked to me to be like a 4-inch thick, one of the sticks that was ripped from my trees looked to be about 4 inches thick. I haven't done exact measurements yet. I'll do that. But it was a huge branch that looked like it was just literally ripped off the tree. And there was another one laying next to it that looked to be about 2 inches in thickness, laying right next to it. And this was the same type of wood, I believe, that was taken off of the trees in my yard and driven into an acorn, next to the acorn tree. Remember the staff that was driven into my yard that I showed you pictures of and did a video of? Well, that stick that was next to my acorn tree was actually taken from the tree branches I'm about to show you, and was stripped and driven 5 inches into the ground in April. But what I want to do first of all, before I show you my updated pictures of what I caught in the backyard the other day, is first of all praise God that that once I went out in the yard and claimed the name of Christ, quoted scripture, and stood on the word of God in my position in the Lord, I had no issues with these beings at all for months. So it's been literally since April. So I've been out since, praying over my property. I did it again yesterday, and hopefully the enemy will stay away. All right. All I believe is that it's pushback, it's hints from the enemy to be silent on the subject, and that to try and scare me off, and I'm not going to do that. There are too many people experiencing these beings in these last days. There are, the enemy does not want the truth to come out about what these beings are. okay? And I believe they are mixed seed. I believe that they are hybrid Nephilim descendants, which is also what our late brother Scott Carpenter believed. His son T. Carp runs his channel and believes the same thing and will openly discuss it. What I want to do is show you, first of all, a motion picture. It's going to be kind of hard to see because I captured it by accident, supposedly. Okay, I think the Lord allowed this to happen, but I captured it by accident on my phone as I was trying to center my camera to take a picture of a sunset. And as you can see from the angle of the sun on my phone, the sun was setting, of course, in the west, and I was trying to get a picture of it. Now, I enjoy amateur photography. As a matter of fact, my son's got me a telescope recently, and I hope to be able to take pictures from that telescope. And I might even make a separate YouTube channel showing you the pictures that I get from that. But I enjoy amateur photography. So I was taking a picture of the sunset toward the woods, which I thought was a very pretty picture. And as I lifted my phone up to capture a random picture of the sunset, this white orb flew by right as I lifted my camera up. Now, to me, that's not a coincidence. There's no way I could time that and say, oh, look, here comes an orb flying by. Let me hurry up and lift up my camera and get a picture of it. There's no way. And with the Lord, there's no such thing as a coincidence. So after I found that 58.5-inch, 2-inch thick staff driven into my ground, I asked for confirmation from the Lord about what it was, and this happened 4 days later. So I'm going to try my best to play this for you again, this motion picture of this orb flying by, and give you the close-up pictures of it once again, just like in the previous videos that I mentioned to you before this one. And I'm also going to be giving you new pictures of what was taken in my yard 3 days ago that I can't explain. All right, that is very concerning. But let me see if I can get this up for you. Hopefully you can see, if you look carefully, and I'll do it several times, there's an orb flying in from the side, and it's quick. So you have to really pay attention. I'm hoping that maybe you have a way to blow it up on your screen or something. I'm going to do my best to play this for you so you can see it. All right, here we go. Do you see that flying in at all? You can see like a little ball flying in. I hope you can see that. It's very quick. Let me do it again. And as I happen to be taking a picture to the west, this white bright ball flies by into my camera view, right into my camera view. I don't know if you can see that or not. Hopefully you can. I'm hoping that came through. I can see it very clearly. What I did after that is I looked up the pictures. I started using filters on my phone, and I blew up the pictures of the orb that I saw fly by. And what I got was this picture here when I blew it up. It was a lot brighter than what my camera aperture captured. To the naked eye, it was very bright. It was like looking at almost like a shooting star. It was extremely bright. Then I happened to capture, when I blew it up even further, I captured this photo here, and what looked like something looking back at me. Okay, like eyes looking back at me. Now this was 4 days after that staff was driven into my yard, and after I started exposing this modern day Nephilim phenomena. All right, this is an even closer picture. Now for some people this may be disturbing to see. I even had doubts about whether or not I should present this on the channel. Not sure how people might take that. To me, it looks like there's eyes here of something looking back at me. And this was the orb that flew into my view, supposedly coincidentally, as I was trying to take a picture of the sunset off toward the west. So I wanted to show you those pictures, as well as show you what I captured the other day. Let me see if I can find this for you. Oh, okay. Well, first of all, before we get into that, this was the staff that was driven into my yard 4 days before I saw the orb fly by. And this staff, I measured it, was 58.5 inches long, 2 inches thick. And I've lived on this particular area for 20 years now. This has never happened before. This is not like this is something that has happened repeatedly for me. There was no wind the night before, no strong storms. And what happened the other day when I went into my yard with my cat, we had no storms and strong wind. There's no explanation why this limb was ripped two limbs were ripped from my trees, okay, and thrown into my backyard. So this was the staff that I found in the yard 4 days before that orb flew by that I showed you, and a close-up picture of that. Let me see if I can get you, here's yet another picture. Okay, here's another close-up picture of that. And what you see is only a portion of the stick. This stick was driven 5 inches into the ground. And when I tried to pull it out manually, I couldn't. I had to use my leg to crack off the stick and then use a shovel to dig out the rest of it. It was literally driven into the ground without the ground being disturbed around it. Let's see if I can find a picture of that. There was no ground disturbed around it. It looked like it was just driven into the ground. Let me see if I can get that for you. Bear with me for a second here, and I'll bring up the new pictures that I took as well in my yard for you. Okay. All right. Trying to get to the top here. All right. This is taking me a while. I'm sorry. But, so I wanted to show you that the picture of those orbs that were taken. Here we are. Okay, I'm sorry. Here's some other pictures that were taken through different filters of that same orb. It's kind of hard to see, but it's a big ball of light. I don't know if you can see that too well. Now, when I cracked off the stick out of the ground with my foot, that's what remained. It was a little stump remaining into the ground, with the grass was not disturbed near it. Here's another picture of that. It was just driven into the ground without the grass being disturbed, and here's the hole that it was pulled out of, and it was, like I said, 5 inches deep into the ground. Here's another picture of the orb that flew by, that just happened to fly by as I was taking a picture of my sunset. Now, getting to the other day, fast forward a little bit. That's why I wanted you to, if you're new to the channel, to watch the videos that I mentioned before, like right before I made this one. So you had a preface for what I'm talking about today, okay? When I went out in the yard with my pet the other day, I found this lying on my property, and I have close-up pictures of this as well, 2 of these. One to me looked to be about 4 inches thick, and the other looked to be about 2 inches thick. So this is the one that was like, I know it may be kind of hard to see in this lighting. It was literally ripped from the ground. Here's a close-up picture of the stick, just literally ripped. Like here you've got the main shaft of the branch, which to me, if I were to guesstimate, it might be 3 or 4 inches around. And then it was ripped. Like you see this whole piece of wood, like it was just torn, like ripped. This isn't a clean saw break or anything like that. This wasn't a saw break or somebody, I mean, who would do that? You know, my neighbor, me, I'm not going to go out there and do that. So when I found that in the yard, and here's another picture of it here, and I found this in the yard, and at the bottom it almost looks like it was just ripped off. It's not a clean break. Here's another close-up picture of that stick. It just looks like it was ripped off, like pulled, and then after it was cracked, it was ripped down. If you can see that, you can see like where the initial crack is, and then here's the rip, like it was pulled down and ripped. So, you know, I find that especially intriguing. You know, after months of not having anything happen, praise God. But, you know, as you know on this channel, I've continued by God's leading to expose the fallen angels and the modern Nephilim phenomena. And why I believe that there's a second incursion that Satan is doing into this world to create an earthly army. Because Revelation tells us he will make war with the Lord when the Lord comes back. So what better way than to create another army, okay, a hybrid army for himself to make war with Christ when he returns. This sounds like science fiction, but it isn't, okay? It is not. The book of Jude tells us that the angels left their proper place, Jude said, and mixed their seed with strange flesh, meaning human women, and it created hybrid offspring. And I do believe that these Sasquatch are hybrid offspring. I believe they are mixed seed in modern times. So I'll show you again, you know, the orb that flew by. I showed you the motion picture of that earlier. I even recommended the videos that before this one, where I show you over and over again loops of the orb flying by and the motion photo of that. Look at it again today in today's video. But this is what I saw when I blew it up. That's what that orb looked like. About 4 days after that staff was driven into my ground, and I asked the Lord for confirmation, like, Lord, what is this? This has never happened before. And it's interesting that it happens after I start exposing the fallen angels and the Nephilim phenomenon. And then, of course, now this was a picture of an orb taken in the evening. So I started noticing all these things happening after I started exposing these things. So again, here's another photo of what was ripped from and the branch is so long, I haven't measured the length of the branch yet, but look at how you can tell it was cracked off from the tree, like initially cracked and then ripped. You can see the long piece of wood here, that like it was ripped, okay? And then of course here again is the size of the branch. And there were two of them. The other one I moved out of the way to just show you the larger one. But there were two of them in the back of my yard. Oh yeah, here's one with one of them laying next to it, like right over here. But I wanted to get the picture of the bigger one for you, and you can see the rip at the bottom of that one branch where it just looked like it was broken off and then ripped, in my opinion. Now, could it have been a human being coming into my yard and doing something like that? Of course. I mean, I don't know why they would. I don't think I have any neighbors that I don't get along with that would want to come and do something like that. So for me, just like the first go round in April with the staff driven into my yard underneath an acorn tree, that the wood that was driven into my ground didn't belong to the tree that the staff was next to. So I identified it as a different piece of wood. Then I had to really work at it with a shovel to get it out of the ground because I could not manually remove it. Then when I asked God for confirmation, I didn't know he was going to do this. I was just saying, Lord, is this just me or did this really happen? I'm just taking a normal picture. Like I said, I like amateur photography, and here this orb flies by and I happen to capture it in my camera and in a motion picture. A moving photo, and I figured I'd present it on the channel as evidence that this is not a coincidence. How could I time that? And then I wanted to show you the pictures of what just happened the other day and what I found in the back of my yard. Okay, so I told you I would update you if anything else happened. Thankfully, it's been months since anything has happened. It's been since April. So God has blessed me with that. And am I in any way afraid or deterred? No. Because my times are in God's hands, and I want to be a soldier for the Lord, a watchman for Christ. And, you know, when the Lord has trained you, I love when David said, the Lord has trained my hands for war. The Lord has trained my hands for battle. And I like to see myself that way spiritually, okay? The Lord would not allow certain things into my life if he had not prepared me and trained me to face it, to deal with it in the power of his name, and then to expose it. So, but I do covet your prayers for my safety and for my property, and that you would cover me with your prayers. I'd appreciate that. But I am going to continue by God's grace and with his permission to expose these beings. All right? Expose what I believe they are spiritually. Now, I want to read to you just a little bit of an excerpt, and I will need my glasses for this in a minute, from the Nephilim Among Us by Scott Carpenter. Again, if you have not checked out his channel, please do so. He is speaking about this subject from a born-again Christian point of view. So you're not going to hear from Scott some secular occult viewpoint, okay? You're going to hear from Scott a Christian view of what these Sasquatch really are. And his son, T-Carp, is still running his channel and believes also that these are modern-day Nephilim, okay? So a little bit of the chapter I want to read to you from Scott's book is called Unveiling the Truth, the Sin Against Creation. So, you know, the angels provoke the Lord when they mix seed with seed, whether it was with, the fallen angels and mixing their seed with the seed of men, or even with animals. They deliberately provoke the Lord. And Jude speaks about, the Lord's own brother speaks in Jude about how the angels left their proper place and fornicated with strange flesh. And God has used those angels as an example to those that follow, any other subsequent powers and principalities that want to do the same thing in these last days, what their situation will be. eternally. But let me start reading a little excerpt from Scott's book, okay? All right, Scott goes on to say here, the word Nephilim not only describes human and fallen angel hybrids, but can also be applied to animal and fallen angel hybrids. During my Bigfoot research, I encountered creatures that defy any natural explanation. The creatures of myth and legend, creatures that conventional wisdom and modern science proclaim should not exist. The book of Enoch describes how the Nephilim sinned against creation. All right. So this is 1 Enoch 7, verse 2. And they became pregnant and bore large giants, meaning these women that they conceived with, all right? Because Genesis 6 tells us that the angels saw the daughters of men and these women bore children to them. So Enoch he's going on with this information about this from Genesis chapter 6. And they became pregnant and bore large giants, and their height was 3,000 cubits. These devoured all the toil of men until men were unable to sustain them, meaning the giants. Verse 4, and the giants turned against the men in order to devour them. And they began to sin against birds and against animals and against reptiles and against fish. And they devoured one another's flesh and drank the blood from it. And then the earth complained about the lawless ones. In the Bible, the book of Genesis records that the fallen angels and their offspring had corrupted all humans, all right, and all living creatures except for Noah, his wife, and their line. Remember, it said in Genesis that Noah's line was pure. His DNA was not contaminated with this Nephilim seed, all right. Genesis 6, but Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord, and these are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations, meaning his DNA was untampered with. And Noah walked with God. And it says here in verse 12, and God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt. For all flesh had corrupted its way upon the earth. All flesh, including animal flesh. Okay? How did the animal flesh get corrupted? All right? See, these angels that Jude said that left their proper place sinned against the Lord and provoked him, and also committed fornication, and apparently even messed with animals too. All right, so it says the phrase here, perfect in his generations, is referring to Noah's genome. Noah's genome had not been corrupted by the fallen angel's DNA, okay, which is what we just discussed. He was a pure human. God said that all flesh had corrupted its way on the earth, and I think this is trying to refer to all the animals, Scott says. I think that the fallen angels were creating angel-animal hybrids as well as human-angel hybrids. Enoch chapter 9, verse 6 says, see then what Azazel has done. Azazel is one of the names of these fallen angels. How he has taught all iniquity on earth and revealed the eternal secrets that are made in heaven. So, and it goes on to say here, let me see. All right, I'm going to read something over here. Okay. This from Scott's book. This genetic engineering program has two goals. One is to create an army, okay? And this is what we've been talking about. Like, I forgot Scott even mentioned this in his book, is to create an earthly army in these last days to stand against the Lord. So Scott is saying here in his book, this part of this genetic engineering program is to create an earthly army. All right. This army includes creatures like Sasquatch. The second creation infiltrators that are counterfeit of God's creation. Satan appears to have a genome manipulation project to create Nephilim that is human in appearance. In my opinion, these counterfeit humans will not be revealed until the end of the times, or the end of the age, when Satan takes complete control of the world. So what he's going on to say here is that these Nephilim, and I like how he outlines this chapter 13, is a sin against creation. Remember in Genesis, what did God say? That everything would reproduce kind after its own kind. That's why sometimes we see, in the prophets that they were told not to mix even claws with different claws and things like that in the law. Each seed was to be unique unto itself and reproduce uniquely unto itself, including mankind. And to me, Jude makes it very clear that these angels, Jude doesn't even just call them the sons of God, he calls them angels that fornicated. you can't take a normal human woman and a normal human man and create a six-fingered, six-toed Nephilim giant monstrosity. It does not happen. It's not even genetically possible. I'm not saying there aren't aberrations in birth sometimes, but what I'm talking about are these Nephilim giants that are described in scriptures that are six-fingered, six toes, and some are 20, 30, 40 feet tall. Huge. And devouring men's resources. And it says in the book of Enoch that the man's cry went up to the Lord for deliverance, and that's why he sent the flood. But the Lord said in Matthew 24 that as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be at the coming of the Son of Man, and that we would see these things again. Could it be that some of these beings we are seeing, where the veil is being pulled back more and more, because what is hidden, the Lord said, will be made manifest. There is nothing hidden right now that will not be exposed. Could it be that these beings are modern Nephilim, modern hybrid mixed seed offspring that Satan will use to unleash on the world that will cause men's hearts to fail them for fear? Is that possible? I think so. I truly do. So I am going to continue to read to you from Scott's book. Again, he's a Christian, all right? This is not a worldly point of view, all right? And I'll continue to read The Judgment of the Nephilim, like I was telling you, by Scott Peterson, all right? Talking about how one day the church will judge the fallen angels and the Nephilim for what they have done. But again, one of my main goals too was to share with you the new pictures that I have on my phone of what I found in my yard about 4 days ago, and how I haven't seen anything like this before. I've lived here for many years, a couple of decades now, in a rural area in Maryland that backs to acres of woods and lake, and this area that I live in, called Sykesville, is known to have a history, okay, of these beings, but I myself never encountered anything like it until after I started exposing them on this channel, which I find extremely interesting in timing. I really do. Very interesting timing. And of course, after I interviewed my friend who lives in the Pennsylvania mountains, everything she's gone through and I've experienced at her place, it's interesting that after I interview her a couple of times, I start exposing things on this channel, then these things start happening in my yard. There's no such thing as a coincidence with the Lord. So I thought I'd share it with you. As always, let you, the viewer, decide what you want to think of it. All the pictures I've shown you, no matter if they're, the orb that looks like it has a face flying by on my phone, you decide what you think that is. All right? You saw it flying by. I showed it to you. All right? You decide what you think this is and why that was driven into my yard after that never happening before, 5 inches into the ground. I showed you the moving image of the orb flying by. I showed that to you. I can even try and bring it back up again one more time before we close the video. Let me see if I can find it. But, or you can just backtrack to the beginning. Let me see here. But, you decide what you think it is. Make up your own mind prayerfully about what you think has been going on in my yard, both in April and a few days ago. Let me see if I can find these, if I can find moving pictures here. Let me see. Anyway, sorry if it's taking me a moment. I'm just trying to see if I can find exactly where these motion pictures are again of that orb that flew by before I close the video, okay? All right, but it's like I said, I don't think it's a coincidence that I happen to just raise my phone, look up just to take a picture of the sunset, and that just happens to fly by my view screen. I mean, how could I time something like that? How could I time an orb flying by my phone? I mean, there's just no way that I could time that perfectly. And I wouldn't come on here and lie to you about that, okay? I would feel convicted in my spirit by the Lord. So, sorry it's taking me a moment. I'm just trying to find these motion pictures again so I can show you one more time before I close the video. What this looked like again as it moved across my neighbor's yard. Actually, it was across me by several yards. All right, let me see. No, that's not it. I think I'm almost there. But thank you for bearing with me through this video. Thank you for watching the previous video. I simply wanted to show you, I'm having a hard time finding this here. Anyway, you can backtrack to the beginning of the video and see the motion picture that I showed you of the orb flying by. Go to the very beginning of this video and backtrack, and I show you how the orb comes flying in from the side. There's no way I could time that, okay? There's no way I could time that. But I just wanted to show you the updated photos I found in my yard a few days ago. I told you I would update you if anything else happened. Thanks to the Lord, nothing did until recently. But I covet your prayers over my property and my life, and it's not enough to make me stop. You know, I could go out in my yard and find a tree driven into the backyard, and it's not going to stop me by the grace of God. I'm not saying that pridefully. I'm saying by the grace of God and his strength and his spirit living in me, I'll continue to do what he's called me to do no matter what the intimidation is, okay? So, because people need to know what is going on in these last days. And if you are experiencing things you can't explain with these beings, possibly orbs, these modern, what I call modern Nephilim, a lot of people call them Sasquatch, I call them mixed seed hybrid Nephilim offspring. I believe that they're becoming more prevalent. I think they're becoming more seen. And why? Because this agenda is to build an earthly army in this world. Satan wants to stand against the Lord when he comes back, according to Revelation, and make war with Christ when he returns. And he's outnumbered, and he knows it. And he's going to unleash these things on the earth. And I think this is what the Lord talks about in Matthew 24, that causes men's hearts to fail them for fear. I truly do. Thank you for listening. And if I get any more information about what I found in my yard, or if anything else comes up or anything else happens, I will definitely do my best to keep you informed. Thank you for listening to this channel. Thank you for subscribing. And again, I subject to you that it's your decision to figure out what you want to think about the pictures and the evidence I've shown you of what's happened in my yard since the spring. I'm not telling you what it is. I know what I believe it is, but it's up to you, the viewer, to decide prayerfully. Just please make sure that your comments are respectful and godly, all right? And thank you for subscribing. And I'll be praying for you all. I really appreciate your fellowship, and I covet your prayers as well. God bless you.